Shalom and welcome back to the Middle East in less than 5 minutes. I'm Igal, your host. I received the following comment to my episode on media bias transcript that I posted on Medium. You raise an interesting point about media bias and how language shapes our understandings on conflicts. The complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict often get lost in the rush for headlines, and the media's portrayal lack nuance on this issue. Do you think the media's framing would change if they better highlighted both sides of the story with all honesty? Here's my answer. Hi Ibrahim. Thank you so much for your thoughtful comment. You hit the nail on the head. Media framing often sacrifices nuance for clicks, and nowhere is this more evident than in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But let's unpack something you said, probably without even realizing it. You called it the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, not Arab-Israeli or Palestinian-Israeli. The choice of words, subtle as it seems, is a perfect example of how language shapes narratives and how the media has tilted the story over decades. Let's rewind. Before 1948, when the modern state of Israel was established, the term Palestinian referred to Jews living in the British Mandate of Palestine. The Arabs were simply called Arabs. When 7 Arab armies invaded Israel on May 15, 1948, the day after its declaration of independence, global headlines screamed, "Arabs invade Palestine." Not Israel, but Palestine, because that's what the land was called before the Jewish state existed. Fast forward to the 1960s, and the narrative did a 180. Why? Enter Yasser Arafat, an Egypt-born figure who, with a nudge from the KGB, helped craft the Palestinian identity as we know it today. This wasn't just a rebrand, it was a deliberate shift to paint Israel as the aggressor, the colonial outsider, the villain, in a story that's far more complex. What drove this? Geopolitics. Israel, born with socialist roots, started cozying up to the West by the 60s, and the Soviet Union didn't take kindly of that. The USSR, along with its allies, saw an opportunity to weaponize the narrative. They leaned into the idea of a downtrodden Palestinian people fighting a Western-backed oppressor. This wasn't about truth, it was about Cold War chess moves. The media, wittingly or not, became a pawn in this game, and the effects linger today. Now, let's fast forward to 2025. We are in an era where social media reigns supreme, and the average person under 30 has little grasp of this history, or any history really. Most of today's college students weren't even born when 9/11 happened. They've grown up in a world of 15-second TikTok clips and X posts, where attention spans are short and emotions rule. The media, both traditional and social, knows this and exploits this. Show a heart-wrenching image of a crying child in Gaza or the West Bank, real or not, and it's game over. Context? Who needs it? The more shocking, the more pitiful, the more viral, and virality equals influence. Here's a dirty secret. Bad actors have mastered this game. Russia, China, Iran's IRGC, and Qatar Al Jazeera, which, let's be real, is less a news outlet and more a megaphone for the Muslim Brotherhood, know how to manipulate emotions. They flood feeds with images and videos, some real, some staged, some straight up fabricated. AI-generated photos of 6-fingered babies, footage of starving kids from Yemen or Syria mislabeled as Gaza, or images of genetically ill people passed off as victims of Israeli policy. All these aren't accidents, they're calculated. Repeat the same visual enough times, and they sear into the public's mind as truth. As the saying goes, a lie told 1,000 times becomes reality. This emotional manipulation isn't just about swaying opinions, it's about igniting division. The more the world sees Israel as a sole villain, the more antisemitism festers. It's no coincidence that we're seeing swastikas scrawled on synagogues, Jewish students harassed on campuses, and boycotts of Jewish businesses. The media's one-sided framing, amplified by social media's echo chambers, has created a perfect storm. It's not just about Israel anymore. It's about Jews as a whole being cast as the world's scapegoat. So to your question, would honest, balanced journalism change the narrative? Absolutely. If the media committed to fact-checked reporting, if they showed the full history, warts and all, on both sides, we'd see a different picture. Imagine outlets diving into the 1948 war, the expulsion of Jews from Arab countries, the repeated rejections of peace deals, alongside the legitimate grievances of Palestinians, like settlement expansion or the humanitarian toll in Gaza. Imagine stories that don't just cherry-pick images to tug hairstrings, but explain why Hamas embeds itself in civilian areas or how Qatar and Iran fund proxy wars. That kind of journalism would force people to think, not just feel. It would expose the bad actors pulling strings behind the scenes. And it might, just might, cool the flames of anti-Semitism that are spreading like wildfire. But here is the catch. Nuance doesn't go viral. Balanced reporting doesn't get clicks. And in a world where media outlets are fighting for ad revenue and social media thrives on outrage, the insensitive is to keep things simple, emotional, and one-sided. Until that changes, we are stuck in the narrative that less about truth and more about who can scream the loudest. That's Middle East in less than 5 minutes. I'm Igal, your host. Until next time, Shalom.